Pope Leo said things that are wrong. He was very much against what I'm doing with regard to Iran, and you cannot have a nuclear Iran. Pope Leo would not be happy with the end result. You have hundreds of millions of people dead, and it's not going to happen. So I can't. I think he's very weak on crime and other things. So.
He has taken on the president about illegal immigration and other issues. This comes after the pontiff most recently criticized the war in Iran, saying that, quote, God rejects the prayers of those who wage war. So to discuss, let's welcome in live senior pastor for the World Outreach Church, Pastor Alan Jackson. Pastor, thanks for being here. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Ed. It's my privilege.
What do you make of this back and forth?
Well, I think it's pretty typical of what we've watched from President Trump. You know, I don't always agree with his choice of vocabulary words, but I almost always agree with his principles and the values that he's standing up for, and that's true in this case, too.
So what do you tell people, your parishioners, about the war in Iran? Is it a just war in your eyes? I mean, people struggle with this, people of faith. Obviously, Iran is a terrorist regime, bad actors on the world stage. What's your approach on the war in Iran?
Well, I think when the Pope said, you know, there's no excuse for war, he wasn't really given an adequate reflection on the history of the church. There's very clearly an idea of just wars. In this case, my opinion, I think the intervention of the United States and our War Department is really the result of the prayers of this emerging underground church. There's been such horrific oppression of the people of Iran for almost 5 decades, particularly for women and minorities. And there have been reports now for many years of this remarkable growth of an underground church. I believe those men and women have been crying out to the Lord the same way we read in the book of Exodus, that the slaves in Egypt were crying out. God sent Moses. I'm not suggesting that President Trump is Moses, but I believe what we're seeing is a military intervention as a response to the cries of people of faith. I believe Christians should imagine that we shape the destiny of nations, that we don't just sit in churches and do polite Bible studies.
Absolutely. The president obviously making his opinions known. The Pope had a chance to respond. He's traveling right now. He spoke to reporters. Here's what he said about the back and forth with the president. Listen.
I do not look at my role as being politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. And I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states.
So, Pastor, I'm Catholic. I'm certainly not going to get into a debate with the pontiff. But when he says I'm not a politician, this is someone who does weigh in on political issues fairly frequently, no?
No, absolutely. And I'm grateful on many occasions for the political influence of the Catholic Church. It's made an enormous difference for good in our world. But in this case, I think there's some naivete, whether it's intentional or otherwise, I don't know. But I mean, Iran has been a global sponsor of terror and responsible for tens of thousands of deaths over a long period of time, and they were on the precipice of nuclear capability. That's just unacceptable for the Middle East and the rest of the world. So whatever the Pope's agenda is, and I don't have enough knowledge to presume upon that, I think in this case, he's on the wrong side of the equation. And I respect President Trump for telling the truth about his adversaries. You know, some of us in Christian have been coached to be polite, which means we lie. And President Trump, pretty much as a rule of thumb, is honest about his adversaries.
Yes.
Whether you like what he has to say or not. He called the news fake news long before the rest of us were willing to go there, and he was telling the truth.
Yeah. Very last thing, real quick. Eric Swalwell, don't mean to come out of left field with this, literally, but he's somebody, when you talk about the president's adversaries, I mean, he's been throwing every last bit of mud against this president for about a decade. And now we found out his house wasn't so clean, I guess.
Yeah, I think without any question. I think we have to continue to pray for God's mercy to give us leaders, men and women of character and integrity. And God's sorting that out, and I'm grateful for this current set of changes.
All right. Pastor Alan Jackson, we appreciate your time. Look forward to having you back, sir.
Thank you, Ed.